So one topic that came up, and I'm sorry I don't remember who brought it up, but I just made the note about it, is by now I think we've all noticed that when our dog goes to a mark bucket and stands on it, there's a shift in the inner state of the dog. And that's one of the most profound aspects of mark training. And at first I thought, oh wow, there must be something about the Rin Tin Tin pose that is so, empowering that it's changing the mindset of the dog. And while I think there is something to it related to that position, like the power pose, but now I'm more convinced that the mind shift, the mental shift of the dog is occurring because of the pausing. And the pausing is, let's see, Laura Bellows loved the cortisol study, so did my physician husband. Yeah, oh, I should talk about that. Just shared a video of a young Belgian sheepdog puppy on Mark Bucket trains with Heather Ross, who trains Dutchies. Excellent, cool. Yeah, and that cortisol study, I'm going to post in this group too. It just talks about the purpose of cortisol in our, why we have it to save our lives and how to recognize it in ourselves and actually in our dogs. So anyway, so back to this, the power of pause. And I love that there was a planned word, the word pause as in I just stopped, and pause as in pause on a mark. But I believe that is what causes the mental and emotional shift in the dog more so than that position. And I've used this example before about how dogs play. They always take pauses, brief pauses. And dogs with healthy play do it kind of in synchrony. And, if one dog isn't doing it, sometimes another dog will correct them and say, hey, buddy, we got to pause. You need to go up and down and up and down in whatever arousal level is being expressed. So I think what happens when we use mark buckets in training versus just mark training for training's sake that it creates natural pauses for the humans. Because otherwise, I think we can tend to be all like, go, 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 this continuous flowing motion thing, especially when things go wrong. We just, keep the dog moving and do it again and again and again, which sometimes is okay. But more often than not, I think that continuous motion, it just creates spin in the dog's mind. And even if you finally get it right after maybe the third try, the dog perhaps doesn't even know what was right and then what was wrong because of that continuous motion. There was no pause, no opportunity to get feedback from us in a very distinct way. So the question somebody had is, or they were pondering, how do I get my dog to have that moment, a mind shift, if I don't have mark buckets, like if I'm in a trial setting. And I think the way you can do that is by really noticing when your dog has a mind shift. So for instance, like you send to the mark bucket, your dog pauses, you see the mind shift, you acknowledge that by praising, like, yes, you're praising the shift that you saw in your dog's mental state. And then you can give an external reward as icing on the cake. But when you pause your dog on course, you can actually wait for the subtle mental shift in that pause as well. So for instance, if your dog, you're at a trial and you've done this, you'd have to first do this so you know how to do it and your dog knows how to do it as well. But in the trial setting, you should, if your dog kind of blows itself up, like just explodes and does something very unexpected, and you ask your dog to sit if that's a position your dog likes, or you ask for a down if that's what your dog likes, or a wait if it's just standing and waiting, and you wait for that momentary shift ever so slightly from to present. You acknowledge that and go on. That becomes like mark training. So starting that away from trials, obviously, you'd want to practice this in training and maybe even in day-to-day life, that your dog, you see your dog going crazy about a squirrel, you call your dog to you, you wait for that mental shift, subtle mental shift. It's not the whole back to the baseline mental state. It's just any kind of shift in the right direction good dog, very calm, very supportive, and just good, solid feedback. I believe you can create the expectation in your dog that when you recall to a pause and smile at your dog and do the thing that you do, that your dog will then kind of go, whew. And what makes me think this is I've been really playing around with Dakota and his mental state, because he is like a night owl. If he had a job and he were a human, he'd probably want to like work at a nightclub, because as it gets dark, that's when he starts looking like, woohoo, let's go party. Yeah, let's dance. Let's this, let's that. He wants to do stuff. And that's not when I want to do stuff. So a couple of times I've just yawned at him, and just saying yawn made me want to yawn. And so the first time I yawned at him, he kind of turned his head away, and I yawned a couple more times, and then he yawned. And then I started blinking my eyes, and he started blinking his eyes, and I kept yawning. And before I knew it, he went from let's go out drinking and partying to, I think I'm really tired, I'm going to go to bed. And he actually went to bed. So that shows that we have the capacity to influence our dog's mental state using techniques that studies have shown. Like if you yawn, your dog will yawn. If you blink and look tired, your dog will mirror that emotional state. That playing around with that just for fun. Another good COVID activity, right? Playing around with stuff that you can do while lying on your sofa if you're really exhausted and kind of in a depressed state. Why not use the patience you'll have in that moment to do something like this and see how you can affect your dog's mental state. And once you see that you can do it, then you're going to work with your dog in a medium arousal level, and you're going to create pauses on the mark. You can create pauses on a mat if your dog is mat trained, you can in a static position, and you're just going to acknowledge the mental shift. And that is something that you can then take to the trial environment, because there's a definite difference to a dog that you stop to reset on the course, and you can see it from the outside, that whether that dog has reset in the mind or whether the dog is just sitting still but still spinning. So I hope that answers that question, because I think it's a really great topic, and it's something we can all do at home with our dogs, away from training, and with training, the kind of training you can do in your living room, or if you have a training room. You don't need space to do this kind of thing. So I encourage you all to play around with this, especially if you've been really tired like me and don't want to move too much.